you ever wanted to stock your freezer with some homemade meals for those busy days that we all have from time to time? Then stay tuned. In this video, I'm sharing 3 delicious, easy freezer meals that I think you and your family will absolutely enjoy. Hi friends, today's video is a freezer meal collaboration that is being hosted by 2 of my sweet YouTube friends, Molly at Molly Purcell and Melissa at I'm Nearly Melissa. They both have great recipe ideas on their channels along with some other amazing content, so please be sure to go and check their channels out. I know you will love them as much as I do. There's also a playlist I'm going to leave down below in the description box of my YouTube friends who are also participating in this collab. So you will be able to find many more freezer recipe ideas that you can stock your freezer with. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you everything I made for this one. So let's go ahead and get started. And for freezer meals, there's many different ways you can freeze your meals. So these aluminum pans are great for casseroles, different types of meals like that. These are pretty sturdy, I find. It just depends on how heavy the food is that you put in it. It also comes with the aluminum lids. So these are great. You can reuse the whole thing if you want. Sometimes I might not be able to use the lid over again. These are a little flimsy, but if you can wash them and get them cleaned really well, in the pan as well. I try to use them at least once or twice since I do pay for these, so I hate to just throw it out after one use. But gallon freezer bags are great as well, and all you have to do with these is just take a Sharpie and write the directions, what's in it. Freezer tape is great for putting on these lids, because if I'm going to reuse the lid, I don't want to write on it, so I just usually use the tape and then write what's in it, the directions and things like that. And that's easily enough, to be taken off before you put it in the oven. If you have just like cling wrap, Reynolds wrap, if that's all you have, you can do that as well. As far as if you have a roast that you want to put a dry rub on, that's a great option to freeze it. If you don't have the bags or the pans, you would just need to wrap it well with the the cling wrap, and then wrap it well with the aluminum foil. I would not use that as a long storage option, but it would work in a pinch. Also, out of air bags, if you have a food saver, these are great for that. This is great for long-term storage in the freezer, months on end. That is great for that. But the pans and the bags, really are a great option and usually pretty readily available. Now, this first recipe is a maple Dijon pork recipe. This one is really delicious. And this one I'm just using a Ziploc bag. So you just want to make sure you have a good seal on these when you go to put the marinade and stuff in it. But I just write down what's in the bag, what the directions are for it. These were pork chops you can either use on the grill or in the oven, so just depending on how I want to cook them that day, I'll just choose which option, which I did these in the oven. But the recipe is for 4 pork chops. I do make 8, but I'm just showing you the recipe for 4. And for this marinade, you're going to need 1/4 cup of olive oil, pure maple syrup, and some honey Dijon mustard. And so easy, 1/4 cup each. And for the seasoning, you're going to need 1/4 teaspoon of salt and pepper and 1/2 teaspoon of dried thyme and 1 tablespoon of water. So very simple marinade that is super easy to make. Just mix everything in a bowl. But the first thing I did was spray that cup with some nonstick spray. That way the maple syrup and the oil, all of that doesn't stick. You can get it out really easy. Add the maple syrup and the mustard. then I add that oil, olive oil, then add your 1 tablespoon of water. You want to add your seasoning and then just whisk this until you get a smooth consistency. And you're going to pour this over your pork chops. And just seal up that bag, and you want to seal it up very tightly, but you want to get the air out, get as much air out of it as you can. And once it's sealed completely, just double check it to make sure. I just tossed it around a little bit, like with any marinade that you put in a bag, and I just want to coat both sides of the pork chops. So just try to make sure you get it on both sides. And once I get it on there, then I just put this in the freezer until I'm ready to use it. So this can stay in the freezer for, I believe, 3 months. And I just want to make sure that that seal is tight. You can put this on a tray first, on a flat, cookie sheet, put it in the freezer and let it freeze, and then you can take the cookie sheet out. And what I do when I'm ready to use this, I take it out the night before and I let it sit in the refrigerator overnight, and it also will help to marinate that, pork chop as it's defrosting. So I used a cake pan that I had, so that way in case anything should drip out, if it leaks or anything, it leaks there and not in your refrigerator. So I did 2 of those, and that's what we're going to have for supper. So I just put that on a sheet pan, and I just put the extra, if there was any extra of the sauce of the marinade, on top of it, but it coated it pretty well, so I didn't have to really use too much of it. I put this in the oven on 350 until the pork was done. And this is what it looks like when it was plated. And this was really, really delicious. I love this marinade. Definitely will make this one again. It's just has a good flavor to it, and it did get into that pork, which I love, because sometimes pork, it's hard to marinate. But I also had some potato roasties with this, some green beans on the side, and like I said, the pork chop was absolutely delicious. Definitely one you should try. This next freezer meal is jumbo stuffed shells, and these were absolutely delicious. So you need 18 jumbo shells because you want to stuff these, and you want to cook those first. So then a jar of your favorite pasta sauce. I usually like the marinara, this particular one, when I do these type of recipes. You'll need about a cup of chicken chopped up into small pieces. And I'll probably have just a little over, a cup, but just enough to do this. And you need a 15-ounce container of ricotta cheese, and you want it with the whole milk. Also, Italian-style blend cheese. You need 2 cups of that, so the whole package. A 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, 1 egg slightly beaten, and 2 cups of frozen spinach, cut up spinach or the long leaf spinach. And I just measured out 2 cups when it was frozen, and then I drained, let it thaw, drained the water off, and squeezed all that water out of it to do this recipe. So the first thing you will do is take the ricotta cheese and just add it to a large bowl. Just break it up a little bit so it's easier to mix everything together. Add your Parmesan cheese, then add your drained spinach, add the egg, then add your chicken. And you want to mix this up until everything is fully combined, because you want that cheese, all of those good ingredients to be mixed in together. And then take one of the aluminum pans and you do not need to grease these or anything, but take a cup of the marinara sauce and put that on the bottom and spread it out. Then take your cooked shell, and you also want to cook these until they're kind of al dente. So I think the packaging said 9 or 10 minutes. So you don't cook it the full 12. That way, when you go to bake this, they won't be, overdone. But I just did that for each one and stuff them, and just make sure you have enough for, filling for each one, and you should get 18. You then take the rest of the marinara sauce and you're going to just spoon it over the top. You don't want to pour it. You want to just kind of gently put it over the top of those shells. Now take the lid and you would just cover this and cover it tightly. And then I wrote on the freezer tape just how to bake it, and that I need to uncover it and sprinkle it with the Italian cheese when I put it in the oven, and how long to bake it for. And then I just put what was in this, so that way I knew, there was no guessing when I went into the freezer of what I was taking out. And the night before, I took it out of the freezer, as you can see how frozen that is. And I'm just going to put this in my refrigerator and let this thaw overnight. And that way, when I get home, I can just put this in the oven and be ready to go. And once it's thawed and I'm ready to bake it, then I take the Italian blend style cheese and put that over the top, put that in the oven and bake it until, for the required directions. And then once it's done, I plate it up, and this is what it looks like. Also, when I put that in the oven and I cover it, I take the freezer tape off. So remember to do that. But this was delicious. The next one is a chicken pot pie. I absolutely love this chicken pot pie. It is a little more time consuming to make this one, but it is well worth it. And it is our favorite, so it's definitely one I will make, when I have the time. So for this one, you need 8 ounces of Parmesan cheese. I had a new package, and then I had just a little bit left in another one. So that's about 8. It should be about 8 ounces. You need reduced sodium chicken stock, but I did not find that in my store, so I'm just using the regular one, and that will work out fine. Also, 2 cups of heavy whipping cream. It calls for a 16-ounce bag of frozen peas, sweet peas, but I only had a 10-ounce bag, so I had another bag in the freezer, and I just took a little bit out to make it 16. You need either 1 cup of fresh corn or frozen corn, which I'm using frozen. And normally I would chop up 3 cups of carrots into smaller bite-sized pieces, but I'm trying to do this a little easier, so I just bought the frozen ones, and that's the only bag I could get that was just carrots, so that's what I'm using. You need 5 cups of red potatoes, and you want to peel them and then just cube those up into small pieces. You need 3 chicken breasts, about 6 ounces. This might be a little more than 6 ounces each, but that's what I had in my freezer, and that's what I'm going to use. You also need, it calls for a teaspoon of salt. I cut it down to about a half a teaspoon, and also some thyme and pepper. You need a tablespoon of lemon pepper, and this really does make this taste really good, so do not skip the lemon pepper, because that's really what makes it great. And 2 cloves of garlic minced, and you will also need 1.5 tablespoons of lemon juice and a teaspoon of lemon zest. A half a cup of celery chopped up fine, and then a half of an onion, and I'll probably have a little bit more because I like onion, and then a half a cup of flour and 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter. So the first thing you want to do is add a tablespoon of water to this, Then add your lemon juice over the chicken. And then take your lemon pepper and just sprinkle it on top of each chicken breast. And if you want, you can do both sides. I just did it on top. And then I cover it with some aluminum foil very tightly. Put this in the oven, and I will cook this until it's completely done. So you can put it on 350 or 375, however you want to do that. Now, the first step is to take your unsalted butter and then add the onions and the celery. And you want to cook those down until it's translucent. So since it's a freezer meal, I want to make sure that those onions and celery are cooked. Now, I forgot to put the thyme separately from the other seasoning, so I'm just scooping it out to add it right now. So once those, the onions and the celery kind of gets translucent and soft, then I add the thyme. And you can add fresh thyme if you want. I just had the dry. Then next you will add the minced garlic, and you will just cook this until it becomes fragrant. So about a minute or so is all you need to add that in and cook it. So just stir it well. Add your flour, and you want to coat those onions and celery and the garlic with that flour. This is really going to help make this a little bit thicker, so you kind of make it a roux almost, just to kind of give it a little bit thickness. So just make sure it's coated well, and I try to do this on a lower heat so it doesn't burn. Definitely do not want burned flour. Now add the chicken stock, and you could probably use broth with this. I've just always used the stock with it, but you gradually add it to the flour mixture because you want to get this to where it's going to be a smooth consistency. So I just continue just adding a little bit at a time until I'm done, with what's in the container. Just mix it well till there's no lumps. Then add the heavy whipping cream. So basically a pint is 2 cups, so you will add that, and I just gradually add that in. Now start adding in the vegetables, so the corn, the peas, and the little extra peas there. And if you don't like peas, you can leave it out, but I think it adds something to it. Also some carrots. And now I add the potatoes, and I just put a few in at a time. I want to make sure I have enough room to add the chicken to it and the Parmesan cheese. So I'm just adding as I go, and I'm not really cooking this down. I'm just kind of heating it through, if that makes sense. I don't want to, fully cook this, but I want to incorporate all those ingredients. And I will use all of the potatoes. I'm just putting that to the side until I add, the chicken and make sure I have enough room. So the salt and pepper goes in next. And then I start adding the Parmesan cheese, and I want to stir that in really well. And I just add a little bit more at a time. But this also, with the flour, helps to thicken this up, but it also gives it a nice flavor. So definitely don't skimp on that. Like I said, it calls for about 8 ounces or 2 cups, I think it said. And I had just about that. So really adds a nice flavor to this. And once my chicken is completely done, I put it in my KitchenAid mixer and just shred it. And I usually like the pieces to be a little bit chunkier, but shredded, if that makes sense. So I just mix it in, and until I have all the chicken that I want into this. And it does start getting thicker. But you can also chop up your chicken into little chunks if you want. But I'm going to continue to add the chicken to it as I go and see, because sometimes I could have too much chicken. Like I said, those were not 6 ounces. Those were a little bit bigger pieces, but I used the majority of the chicken that's there. So it just all depends on how much chicken you want in your chicken pot pie. And the very last thing I add is the lemon zest. So don't forget that. And I just mix that in well before I go to put this into the to the aluminum pans to freeze. And that's what I'm going to do now. I do not spray the pan or anything. I just go ahead and start putting it in. Just spoon it in. I'd rather do that than pour it. Now the biscuits do not go on until you're ready to cook this. And I usually put this in the oven about 20 minutes ahead of time, and then I will put the biscuits on top because I don't want the biscuits to burn. And then I'll cook that until it's completely done. But if you don't want to use a 9 by 13 inch pan, you can also use like a pie plate, but I would use a deep dish one. And these are little mini pans, pie pans. These are deep dish. So if you want to make a mini, pie, you can. Then I just put the tape on this again, put the directions, and put what it is, and put this in the freezer. And then when I'm ready to cook this, I take it out the night before, and you can see that it's frozen. And when I had it in the freezer, it was leaning a little bit, so try to make sure you have it leveled. I just have so much in my freezer right now, so it'll defrost where it'll even out. But if you want it to be perfect when you take it out, just make sure you have a level area in your freezer to do that. Then I put the biscuits on top when I cook this halfway through, when the potatoes start to get tender. I also cooked it on 375 so that way it would cook a little faster instead of the 350. But once the potatoes were cooked through, then I put the biscuits on and let that, bake for about 11 minutes or so. And this is what it looks like when it's done. Really delicious chicken pot pie. It's our favorite. It's pretty much the only one I make, and we really do enjoy it. It doesn't have a crust, so you can put whatever you want on top. You can either put biscuits, you can even do puff pastry, which I do have a video on this particular chicken pot pie, that you put the mixture in the puff pastry like a little bowl, and it's really delicious. So this makes a lot. It made 2 pans, 2 9 by 13 inch pans. So it does make a lot, so you can do that, or you can put these in pie tins, or like I said, little mini pies you can make like for lunches and things like that. So it does make a lot. So it's very, very economical in that way. And I hope that you enjoy this one because it's really delicious. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the collaboration and found some really good meals that you can stock up your freezer with. And I want to thank Molly and Melissa as well for putting this together, because this was a very fun collaboration to do, and it's given me some ideas for meals that I can put in my freezer for those hectic days, which I have a lot of during the week sometimes. So I may start, sharing some of those videos with you, recipes in videos. That way, if I'm making them, why not share them with you? If they turn out good, I'll do that. And like I said, it's just something I need to have some meals ready to go weekly. So it's not necessarily long-term recipes I'm looking at, but recipes I need for the week. So you'll probably see me make them and then, have them plated and everything so you can see what they look like when they're done. But I hope that everyone has a blessed day and a blessed week ahead. So thank you all so much for watching. God bless y'all.